May 20th, 1951. American F-86 Sabre jets ripped through enemy airspace above Sinuiju, North Korea at over 500 miles per hour. Their objective is simple: lure enemy MiGs into a fight and kill as many as possible. These pilots are pioneers of a new age. Air combat is now driven by the jet engine.
These guys went into a very unknown environment. They went into a very tough war. This wasn't World War II. They took airplanes that were flying twice the speed of any fighter combat before, and they showed us how it was done.
James Jabara flies element lead in a flight of 6. The 27-year-old captain is one of the best. A Mustang pilot during World War II, he's become a master of jet versus jet combat. With 4 MiG-15 kills to his credit, he's one away from becoming the first American ace of the jet age.
Jabara is so close. I mean, he's got 4 MiG kills. The Air Force desperately wants an ace, and he's the guy that can do it.
After only minutes in enemy territory, he'll get his chance. 50 gleaming MiG-15s scream across the Yalu River to take on the Americans. Jabara punches his tanks to streamline his fighter for combat, but something goes wrong.
He loses only one of his tanks, gets a huge asymmetric rocking motion on the aircraft, probably bangs his head off the canopy, has a difficult time controlling the airplane.
The pins securing the tanks to the wing have frozen, a common problem in the frigid skies of North Korea. Standing orders dictate that he must return to base.
He puts both hands on the stick, steadies it, and gets the aircraft back under control, and then in a very short amount of time has to make that critical combat decision. Can I still fight with this airplane? Now, his judgment is weighed with his aggressiveness, and his aggressiveness wins out.
Jabara and the rest of the Americans pull a right break into the oncoming enemy. Approaching head-on, the fighters close at over 1,600 feet per second. At this speed, it's next to impossible to get an accurate shot. The MiGs thunder past. Jabara jerks the stick hard left to pursue. The hung wing tank turns his F-86 into a bucking Bronco.
He's probably pulling 30, 40, 50 pounds of stick force right there and trying to control his jet as he's pulling lead out in front.
Jabara's wingman, Salvatore Kemp, calls out 3 more MiGs diving fast from behind. The MiGs are here. They've gained a 100-mile-per-hour speed advantage in the dive. Jabara and Kemp are here, with only a split second to counter them. The MiGs hurtle in. Jabara pulls up and to the right. He's using the MiGs' diving speed against them, forcing an overshoot.
Jabara's brake turn up to the right forces 2 MiGs to go right by and continue to go. One MiG, for one reason or another, decides to peel off to the left, exposing his belly to Jabara.
Jabara pounces. He snaps his plane to the left and locks onto tail end Charlie.
Not only is that the sign of a good fighter pilot, but it's a sign of a good fighter pilot in the new jet age. Things happen extremely fast, and those that are able to react almost before it happens are able to take advantage.
The bandit stays in a diving left turn. Jabara pulls the stick in tight to stay in trail. At this altitude, the F-86 and MiG-15 are evenly matched in a turning fight. But Jabara's got something his foe lacks: a G-suit. It's a World War II invention that came into its own as an essential tool of dogfighting in the jet age. The G-suit constricts around Jabara's legs and abdomen, keeping blood from pooling in his extremities. Jabara is able to pull tighter than the MiG pilot without blacking out. He closes the gap. His coveted 5th kill is now in perfect position, dead center in his gun sight. Jabara opens fire. 50 caliber rounds impact the MiG. The pilot ejects. Seconds later, the empty fuselage explodes.
This is what he's been working for. This is why he's been in Korea. So he has got to be elated at this point.
It's a confirmed kill. America has its first jet ace. September 23rd, 1970. In the midst of a wild melee, famed German ace Voss holds his own against no less than 6 top British aces. Voss savors the combat, superbly demonstrating the lethal effectiveness of his prototype Fokker triplane.
His stick and throttle ability, his ability to fly in a disciplined way in a fight, his ability to stay not calm, but to keep his wits about him in these very stressful situations. If he were flying with us today, he'd probably be one of the best.
British SE-5 pilot Richard Mayberry now zeroes in on Voss, diving on him from 6 o'clock. Voss breaks right to shake him off, but Mayberry is not thrown.
At this point in the battle, things get very complicated and very confused. An albatross joins the battle, which of course helps Voss considerably, at least numerically.
A German Albatross D3 has stumbled into the action, turning easily onto Mayberry's tail. Mayberry zoom climbs to shake the Albatross. A German pilot gives chase. But even worse, Voss latches on as well. Flying nearby, James McCudden and Arthur Rhys-Davids move in behind the Germans. And for a moment, the battle is transformed into a wild, twisting tail chase. The Germans are sandwiched between the British. The Albatross pitches up, zooms, then drops in behind McCudden and Rhys-Davids. The German yanks the stick back. The gut-churning loop puts him squarely behind the British.
Unfortunately for Rhys-Davids, the Albatross manages to unload his guns into his airplane.
But Rhys-Davids stays in the fight, the Albatross still on his tail. Now, at the head of the chase, Richard Mayberry will pitch up and loop back on the tail of the red-nosed Albatross. Mayberry yanks the stick back, throwing his SE-5 into a dizzying acrobatic maneuver. He fires from point-blank range. The wounded Albatross plummets. Voss is alone once again. He zooms, distancing himself from the slower climbing SE-5s. Voss looks down at the plane circling below. He could easily disengage and live to fight another day, but the enticement of the kill runs hot through his veins.
I think actually he got greedy, and he was looking at an opportunity to notch number 49 and number 50, and furthermore to close the gap on his friend and rival Manfred von Richthofen.
Voss dives back into the fray. He fires his Spandau machine guns into the nearest SE-5. Its engine pummeled. The British pilot dives out of the fight. The dogfight rages above no man's land. Voss handles the triplane superbly, pumping rounds into each of the attacking SE-5s. But it isn't enough.
The thing that's unfortunate for Voss is that he never really put enough planes out of commission to gain any sort of advantage. All the bullets he put into all those planes, he never drew a drop of blood from any of those opponents.
To the British, Voss seems invulnerable.
The triplane was still circling round in the midst of 6 SEs who were all firing at it as opportunity offered. And at one time I noted the triplane in the apex of a cone of tracer bullets from at least 5 machines simultaneously, and each machine had 2 guns.
The British are dumbstruck by the skill and tenacity of the German pilot in the Fokker triplane. But Werner Voss's luck is about to run out. Voss is here. British ace James McCudden is here. They'll streak in, head on. But Voss doesn't see another SE-5 coming in from the side. The SE-5 on the side watches the merge. Then opens fire. Rounds slam into the triplane's cockpit and fuselage. Voss stays aloft, but for the first time in the battle, he takes no evasive action. Then, Arthur Rhys-Davids dives on Voss from behind. He empties his Vickers machine guns into the triplane. Voss does little to avoid the deadly arc of bullets.
Given how much he straightened up and how the ferociousness of his maneuvering had abated, that he was wounded, and he was probably starting to have some difficulty maintaining consciousness.
Rhys-Davids fires another burst into the triplane, then pulls up. James McCudden is the only pilot to witness Voss's final moments.
When I next saw him, he was very low. I saw him go into a fairly steep dive, and so I continued to watch. And then saw the triplane hit the ground and disappear into 1,000 fragments. For it seemed to me that it literally went to powder.
After 10 minutes of ferocious combat, Werner Voss is dead at age 20. The German ace shot holes through every plane that attacked him, but incredibly, all returned to base. July 26, 1944, 8:45 a.m. 12 checker-tailed P-51 Mustangs knifed through the crisp alpine air near Graz, Austria. They're 7,000 feet above a formation of bombers. First Lieutenant Art Fiedler has the number 4 slot in a flight of 4.
We were long-range bomber Escort. When we flew the 51, we could fly at least 650 miles.
Fiedler settles in for another uneventful 5-hour mission. Pilots call them milk runs. But just minutes into the mission, Fiedler spots something strange.
I look down to the left, and I see the most incredible formation I have ever seen. I see 8 airplanes flying line abreast, almost wingtip to wingtip. And there's not only one row, there are 8 rows of them. There are 64 airplanes. This is a fantastic formation.
Fiedler calls out the bogies.
somebody said, they're P-51s. And I said, how can they be P-51s? I never saw 51s fly in a formation like that.
Within seconds, Fiedler's worst fears are realized. The mystery planes are Focke-Wulf 190s, Germany's most advanced piston-engine fighter. Their 30mm cannons lay waste to the bombers.
At this particular juncture, I said, they're bogies and they're hitting the bombers, I'm gone. I decide that if I shoot at the lead row of them, if I can hit any of them and have them pull up, that we can break the formation up and they'll stop shooting at the 17th.
But as he pulls up from his attack run, he's met with a horrifying sight.
There are 17s falling, pieces of them are falling. I see a B-17 roll over on its back, start down and spin. Second spin, the tail came off of it. There's at least 20 shoots. I've got to be careful where I'm going. I don't want to run into anybody.
Fiedler rolls away from the carnage, then spots a lone FW-190. Fiedler banks easily onto the German's tail and closes in for the kill. Suddenly, the 190 knifes hard right. Fiedler loses the bandit in the chase. The 190 pitches down into a steep dive. Fiedler noses over and maneuvers his P-51 behind the German. The two planes plunge earthward, 600 feet every second. Below the clouds, the rugged peaks of the Austrian Alps stretch out before them. The German noses up steeply into a climb. Fiedler claws for altitude.
I am astounded to see him coming straight down at me, and he's shooting at me. When he's coming down at me, I think, how the hell could he possibly go from straight up to straight down? And it seems like in just a couple of seconds. And that's exactly what was going through my mind. How is this possible?
Fiedler reverses and pursues his foe, closer and closer to the deck. They are hurtling earthward at over 450 miles per hour. During a wild chase to the deck, Art Fiedler has witnessed an FW-190 pilot performing impossibly difficult maneuvers. Now, Fiedler's locked on his tail in a high-speed pursuit through a mountain pass.
I'm about 400 yards, and I'm getting close enough to ready to start shooting at this guy. I remembered the advice that I had gotten from this World War I fighter pilot, that the easiest time to shoot an enemy airplane down is when he's trying to shoot one of yours down. So every time you're getting ready to shoot at an enemy airplane, be sure you check your tail.
Fiedler looks over his shoulder. Sure enough, another Focke-Wulf is diving on him. Fiedler comes to a stunning realization. His enemy wasn't superhuman. Fiedler's been fighting two FW-190s the whole time. Now the second 190 closes in for the kill. Fiedler will barrel roll, throwing off the German's aim while simultaneously slowing down enough to drop in behind the diving 190. Fiedler raises the Mustang's nose while pushing the stick over. The white-tipped Alps roll over his head as he drops into the Focke-Wulf's 6 o'clock. Payback time.
So I put my pipper out in front of him and started firing.
Fiedler hoses the German plane down with his 650 caliber Brownings. The FW-190 tumbles out of control.
and he crashed right there beside that barn.
Scratch one for Fiedler. But the first Focke-Wulf is somewhere up ahead.
So I keep going down the valley at full speed. I guess I travel about a minute and a half, and the canyon turns off to the left, and of course I follow the canyon, and we now come to a wide expanse. And as I start looking around, I look at that mound, and here comes an airplane right at me.
But then, a friendly voice crackles through the radio.
And it says, if that's a P-51 coming towards me, waggle your wings. Well, I waggle the wings, of course.
It's Bill Lowry, a squadron mate of Fiedler's. The two Mustangs form up and search the skies for targets. Suddenly, Lowry dives for the deck.
As I look down there, I see a trail of black smoke from as far to the right as I can see.
A wounded German Me-109 flying just above the ground. Lowry saddles up for an easy kill.
He presses the trigger, and I guess the guns fire about 3 rounds, and he's out of ammunition. So he pulls up here and he says, "He's all yours, you lucky SOB," but he didn't say SOB.
Fiedler slides in behind the German.
I'm pulling up kind of slow on this 109, who's still going balls to the wall and smoking black smoke.
This low to the ground, a single miscalculation is fatal.
Lowry's sitting up here and he's yelling, "Shoot, shoot, shoot!" And I'm saying, "Hold your horses, hold your horses."
Fiedler closes to 250 yards. The panicked German elects to bail out, 10 feet off the ground at nearly 400 miles per hour. His body impacts the ground and bounces. Fiedler witnesses the gruesome sight.
This is incredible. The second bounce looks like he's bouncing right over my wing. In the third bounce, he bounces right into the wreckage of his Me-109, which is smashed into the ground and is now a rolling ball of fire. This was not a pleasant experience to see somebody killed like that. We have always expected that the air-to-air combat is machine against machine, and we don't normally get to see the blood and the guts, so this was pretty much of a shock.
Fiedler climbs to altitude and heads back to base. He has scored his 4th and 5th victories. Fiedler is an ace.